In 2017, U.S. farmers shipped $12.2 billion in soybeans to China. One tariff later, that collapsed to $3.1 billion. Prices fell below $8 a bushel. Brazil seized the demand, and it never came back. The trade war did not break American soybean farming. It exposed a weakness that was already there. For small farms, soybeans are dead. What replaces them matters more than you think. In 2017, U.S. soybean growers shipped over $12 billion worth of beans to China. Within a single marketing year, that figure collapsed to just over $3 billion, a loss of nearly 3/4 of the market. The shock was not abstract. On the Chicago Board of Trade, soybean futures plunged below $8 a bushel for the first time in years. For small farms, that price drop meant the difference between breaking even and falling deep into the red. Across the Midwest, growers watched contracts evaporate and bins fill with unsold grain. The federal response was swift but telling. The USDA rolled out $28 billion in direct payments through the Market Facilitation Program, an unprecedented bailout aimed at keeping family farms afloat. These payments were not profit, they were lifelines, arriving as cash flow dried up and loan calls grew louder. The reality was stark. Export revenue had vanished, market prices had cratered, and government checks became the only thing standing between thousands of small producers and bankruptcy. Behind each number, $12 billion lost, prices under $8, $28 billion in emergency aid, was a warning. The business model that tied American soybeans to a single foreign market had failed, and for many small growers, the damage was permanent. Brazil stepped in to fill the gap almost overnight. As U.S. shipments to China collapsed, Brazilian ports moved record volumes of soybeans eastward. In 2018, Brazil exported about 71 million metric tons of soybeans to China, a jump of more than 30% from the year before. This was not a temporary spike. Brazil's rapid port expansions, including new terminals at Santos and Rio Grande, cut vessel turnaround times and allowed for even greater throughput. By 2023, Brazil supplied roughly 45% of all soybeans imported by China, nearly double its share from just a few years earlier. Meanwhile, the U.S. struggled to regain lost ground, with its own share stuck near 25%. The numbers reveal a hard truth. Once a buyer of China's scale finds a new supplier, the old trade routes rarely reopen as before. China diversified its sourcing, not just to avoid future tariff shocks, but to secure more stable supply lines. For American farmers, this meant the lost market was not coming back. The shift was not just about price, it was about reliability and long-term access. With Brazil now firmly entrenched as China's main supplier, the U.S. faced a new reality. The era of easy, high-volume soybean exports to China had ended, and the search for crops less exposed to global politics became urgent. The lesson was clear. When a single crop is tied so closely to one foreign buyer, the risk is not just short-term loss, but permanent displacement. Any alternative for small farms would need to be resilient, rooted in domestic demand, less vulnerable to sudden trade shocks, and capable of delivering real value per acre. Hemp's rise began with a single line in the 2018 Farm Bill, which removed industrial hemp from the Controlled Substances Act and set a federal definition of no more than 0.3% THC by dry weight. This legal change opened the door for small farms to plant a crop that had been off-limits for decades. Within a year, states from Kentucky to Oregon launched licensing programs, and the USDA rolled out a national hemp production program. For growers squeezed by collapsing soybean prices, hemp offered a new revenue stream. Depending on the variety and end use, gross returns ranged from $800 per acre for grain to as high as $30,000 for CBD-rich flour, dwarfing the net income of soybeans, which rarely cleared $250 an acre after costs. Hemp also required about 30% less water than soybeans, and typically needed fewer pesticide applications, according to Rutgers agronomy trials. But access to processing remained a hurdle. Only about 12% of U.S. hemp acreage lay within 30 miles of a certified extraction facility, leaving many producers with high transport costs and limited market options. Tara Lee, a former tobacco grower in Kentucky, converted her old barns to dry hemp fiber and managed $4,200 an acre in gross revenue, but had to contract with an out-of-state processor to stay profitable. The legal and agronomic advantages are clear, but the infrastructure gap still limits hemp's potential as a universal pivot for small farms. Mark Jensen's decision to switch from soybeans to elderberry began with a spreadsheet and a gamble. After the 2022 price crash, he converted most of his 145-acre farm in Iowa into elderberry rows. By the third year, his gross receipts reached $29,800 per acre, an amount that dwarfed what soybeans could ever deliver on the same ground. Mark's operation is not an outlier. University of Missouri agroforestry data confirms that mature elderberry stands in the Midwest can return $12,000 to $40,000 per acre, depending on processing and market channels. Yet across the entire country, fewer than 2,000 acres are commercially planted. The scarcity is striking, especially as demand for elderberry juice and supplements grows every year. Unlike soybeans, elderberries are harvested and sold almost entirely within the United States. Their short shelf life keeps the market local, insulating growers from the volatility of global trade disputes. With a climate fit across growing zones 3 to 9 and virtually no large-scale competitors, elderberry offers a rare combination: high value, domestic demand, and a market that small farms can actually dominate. A single shipping container, a few racks, and 500 square feet of insulated barn space. That's all Sergeant Alex Ramirez needed to launch his mushroom micro-farm in western Ohio. After leaving the Army, Alex started small, oyster mushrooms grown on pasteurized sawdust blocks, harvested every 5 days. In the first 6 months, he produced 350 pounds, grossing $2,800 while still working another job. By month 12, production doubled, and local chefs began calling. 18 months in, Alex was clearing $7,500 in net income from a space smaller than most garages, enough to quit his off-base job entirely. Cornell's Small Farms program reports that specialty mushrooms can return $25,000 to $75,000 per year from just 500 square feet, depending on the crop mix and market. Unlike row crops, mushrooms do not need prime farmland or heavy machinery. They thrive in repurposed sheds, old tobacco barns, even spare corners of a greenhouse. Most sales are local: CSA boxes, farmers markets, and direct contracts with regional food producers, so prices stay stable and the market is insulated from foreign trade shocks. For small farms with limited acreage, or for veterans like Alex looking to start fresh, mushrooms offer a rare combination: high value, rapid payoff, and almost complete immunity to the kind of export volatility that crushed soybeans. The numbers from the USDA Economic Research Service cut through the debate. For a typical small farm, soybeans bring in between $450 and $550 per acre in gross margin. But after accounting for costs, net income often falls below $250. Compare that to specialty crops. Hemp, depending on the end use, can reach $800 to $1,200 per acre for fiber, and up to $30,000 for CBD flower. Elderberries, once mature, routinely deliver $12,000 to $40,000 per acre. Specialty mushrooms, grown indoors on less than an acre, can generate the equivalent of $25,000 to $75,000 per year from just 500 square feet. On average, the USDA finds that small farms growing specialty crops earn about 10 times the net income of those focused on soybeans. The difference isn't just a matter of crop choice, it's built into the math of the system. Soybeans don't hold their position by accident. Behind every acre planted, a powerful network of gatekeepers works to keep the system running in their favor. In 2018 alone, Bayer Monsanto, Cargill, and the American Farm Bureau Federation spent over $12 million on lobbying, more than some entire specialty crop sectors earn in a year. This money flows into policy campaigns, research grants, and direct advocacy for acreage-based subsidies and price supports. The Farm Bureau pushes for programs that reward volume, not per-acre profit, while Bayer Monsanto funds research on new soybean varieties and sponsors forums focused on maintaining soybean profitability in the face of trade shocks. These organizations shape what crops get insurance, what gets counted in federal reports, and even what is taught at land-grant universities. For small farms, the message is clear. Switching away from soybeans means pushing against a system designed to keep commodity acreage king. Today, Brazil owns over half of China's soybean imports, proof that lost ground stays lost. For small farms, the real risk is not the next tariff, but betting on a system built for volume, not value. Survival now means choosing crops with roots in local markets, not global politics.